There's a specific flavor of frustration that only shows up in coaches who've been around long enough to have nothing left to prove. It isn't the heat of a rookie manager lashing out after a bad result. It isn't panic, and it isn't theater for its own sake. It's something colder and more deliberate. The controlled disappointment of someone who has seen every version of this situation before and knows exactly what he's looking at. Carlos Queiroz is 73 years old. He has stood on the touchline at 5 World Cups. He worked alongside Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United, led the national teams of Portugal and Iran, took charge at Real Madrid, managed South Africa, and now finds himself steering Ghana toward what could be their most important tournament result in over a decade. He has lived through officiating storms across 4 different decades of top-level football, so when he walked into the press conference room after Ghana's scoreless draw with England in Foxborough, Massachusetts, locked eyes with a FIFA official sitting in the room, and began speaking, everyone present understood they weren't watching an ordinary post-match exchange. What he said, more or less, was this. He wasn't sure VAR was actually functioning at this World Cup anymore. He said there had been a clear penalty owed to Ghana, and that once again, VAR had apparently gone for a coffee. He added that he enjoys his coffee breaks too, but that this had been a clear penalty and a clear red card. Then, almost as an aside to the room full of reporters, he added that he was sorry for the sarcasm, but if he said these things seriously, he'd be punished for it, so everyone should understand he was only joking. He wasn't joking. Nobody in that room believed for a second that he was joking. A 79% possession game that still couldn't find the net. To understand why this moment detonated the way it did, you have to look at the match itself. England dominated possession at nearly 79%, a figure that, remarkably, represents the highest share of the ball recorded by any team that still failed to score at a World Cup in 6 decades. 19 shots, under 1.4 expected goals, a performance that should, by the raw numbers, have produced a win, and instead produced nothing but frustration on both benches. But Queiroz's grievance wasn't really about the scoreline. It was about 2 specific incidents, 13 minutes apart, both involving England, both reviewed, or theoretically reviewed by VAR, and both resolved in England's favor. The first came in the 66th minute. Ghana's substitute, a direct and fearless attacker who had been on the field for barely 10 minutes, was running at England's box when the goalkeeper came rushing out to meet him. Contact was unmistakable. The attacker went down. Queiroz's bench erupted instantly. The referee's call, a free kick for England, not a penalty against them, and no card shown. Queiroz's red afterward was blunt. He called it a clear case that should have ended with a red card, no doubt about it in his mind. The second incident is the one that really set the internet on fire. In the 79th minute, the insect thought that same Ghanaian attacker burst into the box in what looked like a clean run on goal. An England centre-back came in from behind, made contact with the player rather than the ball, and the attacker went down again. On the replays circulating online afterward, the contact looked unambiguous to a lot of viewers. No penalty was awarded, no card was shown. VAR, supposedly reviewing both moments from its dedicated technology hub, found nothing in either incident worth overturning. Even former England striker Wayne Rooney, watching from the broadcast booth, said publicly that the defender had taken a serious risk and made contact with the man rather than the ball. Chelsea conceding, on air, that his own country's player had probably been lucky to avoid giving away a penalty. That's not partisan commentary. That's a former England international with zero reason to favor Ghana, calling it as he saw it in real time. The officials in the middle of it. The VAR official responsible for reviewing both moments from the review center was American. The on-field referee was a Honduran official making his very first appearance, handling a match involving either England or any African nation. None of that is automatically a scandal. Every official has to have a first at some point, and this referee arrived with real credentials, having worked Gold Cup finals and Nations League finals in regional competition. But put it all together, an official with no prior experience with either federation, 2 contested incidents inside the same half, and a VAR review that cleared both, and a BRB, Batans, and a Dir, and Asvai. And you've got the perfect ingredients for exactly the kind of controversy that's now engulfing this match. This isn't an isolated incident, it's a pattern. Here's what makes Queiroz's coffee comment land so much harder than it might have at a different tournament. This is not the first VAR controversy of this World Cup. It's not even the third. There was the Switzerland-Qatar decision in the tournament's opening week, where the supposedly decisive replay angle was never actually shown to the public. There was the Argentina-Algeria match, where a high-profile star avoided a card for a challenge that several respected analysts argued should have been a straight red. Algeria reportedly filed a formal written complaint with FIFA over it. And now there's England-Ghana with 2 contested calls in the same half, both going the way of the bigger, more commercially significant team, both involving the opponent's most dangerous attacking weapon. The through line across all of these stories is the same one Queiroz pointed to with his joke. Decisions seem to consistently favor the larger, higher-profile nations. VAR reviews them and finds nothing wrong, and the wider football world looks at the footage and, with varying degrees of politeness, says that something doesn't add up. Queiroz knows precisely how this system works. He knows that if he voices this criticism in a fully serious tone, he risks disciplinary action and a fine from FIFA. He said as much, out loud, in the room. Framing his criticism as a joke wasn't him backing down from what he meant. It was a calculated way of saying exactly what he wanted to say while staying just inside the lines of what FIFA would let him get away with. This is a man who has been doing this for 50 years and has learned precisely where those lines sit. He walked right up to the edge of them, wrapped his message in a coffee metaphor, and made absolutely sure every journalist in that room knew exactly what he meant anyway. England's side of the story fairness means hearing the other side too. England's manager, speaking afterward, acknowledged that his team lacked the cutting edge to convert their dominance into goals, and admitted the group stage had proven difficult. He said his players had given it everything and played with the right energy, and that he hoped the fans wouldn't lose faith. England's young midfield star also found himself in his own mini-controversy. He'd had a heated halftime exchange with Queiroz after a heavy tackle on one of Ghana's players. Afterward, he downplayed it as nothing more than competitive fire, admitted the tackle itself had been a bit reckless, and said he and Queiroz actually shared mutual respect. He remembered Queiroz from his Manchester United days. Queiroz, for his part, said the player had used some choice language during the confrontation that he wouldn't repeat. Neither man escalated things beyond that moment, but the fact that it happened on the same night as 2 disputed penalty calls and the now viral press conference only added more fuel to what's already the most talked about match of this World Cup's second week. The bigger question: FIFA can't avoid strip away the sarcasm and the coffee metaphor, and what's left is a serious question. In the span of 2 weeks, VAR has now been publicly challenged by multiple coaches, multiple broadcasters, and at least one entire national federation. Each challenge has looked different on the surface. A formal written complaint here, a sarcastic joke there. Pundits criticizing decisions live on air elsewhere. But the underlying accusation is identical every time. The system isn't being applied consistently, and the inconsistency seems to consistently break in favor of certain teams over others. It's not a small claim. And it doesn't go away just because Queiroz delivered it with a smile and a joke about espresso. This is not an inexperienced coach making excuses for a disappointing result. This is a man with 50 years in the game, 5 World Cup cycles of experience, and a very clear read on exactly what he watched happen on that pitch. He said it as carefully as a person possibly could, while still making sure everyone understood he knew exactly what the rules were for what he was and wasn't allowed to say out loud. The coffee line was never really the story. The decisions were the story. Where Ghana stands now, despite, or maybe partly because of, all of this noise, Ghana finds itself in an extraordinary position. 4 points from 2 matches, unbeaten, on the verge of reaching the World Cup's knockout rounds for the first time since their famous quarterfinal run back in 2010. Their opening win and this hard-fought draw against England have both been built on exactly the kind of disciplined, counter-attacking organization Queiroz has spent his career constructing. They now face Croatia in Philadelphia in their final group match, knowing a positive result there locks in their place in the knockout stage. A key midfielder who missed Ghana's opener due to a visa issue tied to an ongoing legal matter in England is now available for selection, giving Queiroz a different kind of control in the middle of the pitch. And the young substitute at the center of both contested incidents against England has firmly announced himself as a player capable of changing games on his own. So, was VAR really out for coffee? That's the question hanging over this entire tournament now. Has the pattern of contested VAR decisions reached a point where the system's credibility is genuinely on the line? Or are these individual incidents, painful as they may feel to the teams on the losing end of them, simply the unavoidable byproduct of officiating elite football at the highest possible stakes, rather than evidence of anything systemic? And maybe the sharpest question of all, when a 73-year-old coach with 5 World Cups behind him looks a FIFA official dead in the eye in a room full of the world's football media, asks out loud whether VAR is even still working, and then immediately says he's only joking because otherwise he'd be punished for it. Does that really sound like a man making light of a tough night? Or does it sound like a man who's said everything he's allowed to say and is hoping the rest of us can read between the lines?